Hi, Thomas Brinsko here, publisher of BIC Magazine and BICmagazine.com, bringing you the top news of the week. There are two items I'd like to visit about this week, both important news stories, and they have a commonality in that they demonstrate the difference between the way our government and press treat petroleum and petrochemical manufacturing versus how they treat other industries. First, you've probably recently seen some news stories about the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. It happened on February 3rd, though. The pictures I saw on February 3rd on Twitter were horrible. It looked like a bomb went off. Citizens were posting photos of dead fish in the waterways and lots of accounts of headaches and other illnesses. Now, I've got a 24-hour rule to filter what I see on Twitter. I wait 24 hours and then try to find some independent sourcing for the information before I comment or share on it. But I was really worried with what I saw. I watched the story develop for 3 or 4 days on Twitter before Fox News finally picked up the story. There were 38 rail cars that came off the tracks, and 11 of them contained hazardous materials that are hard to pronounce, including vinyl chloride, ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, ethihexyl acrylate, I think I got that right, isobutylene, and butyl acrylate. Reports were made that rather than let some of the rail cars leak, those in charge of the site decided to set the material on fire, thinking burning it would be better. Officials say the contents of the 9 rail cars have vented into the air now, seeped into the ground or the waterways, or were burned. The EPA doesn't know the exact volume of chemical loss at this time, but I can tell you if the same leak and fire and release of chemicals would have come from a chemical manufacturing plant instead of the railroad, you better believe it would have been front page news in the lead story on every primetime network within 4 or 5 hours. And despite this huge environmental catastrophe unfolding for a couple weeks, neither our president nor our transportation secretary have visited East Palestine. Instead of focusing on our citizens, 17 days after the tragedy, Biden's on the ground not in Ohio but in Ukraine. And at the same time, ABC News reports that Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg penned a sharply worded letter to the Norfolk Southern Railway. I pray for the limitation of the damage there, and I give thanks to the professionals in emergency response who are now working to contain the worst of the damage. But I think there's going to be a lot of fallout. But I know if this same leak or explosion would have come directly from a chemical plant instead of the railroad, you better believe it would have been front page news 2 weeks ago in the lead story on every mainstream newspaper. There'd be a swarm of government officials out there condemning the manufacturer within hours. We've seen it happen before. Sometimes it's deserved, but it's just hard to swallow the disparate treatment. In other news, Houston's Next, a renewable fuels company, is planning to build a 55,000 barrel per day refinery in Oregon. It plans to take waste oils and animal fats and turn them into fuel. Pretty cool. A 55,000 barrel per day refinery isn't a huge refinery, but it's not inconsequential. Pretty nice sized refinery. A larger one is even being considered by a company called Fidelis Infrastructure, and they're planning on building it in the Baton Rouge area. Renewable diesel is quickly growing as an alternative to fossil fuels. It's chemically identical to petroleum-based diesel, meaning it can be used in pipelines and engines without modification. Now, I'm an all-of-the-above guy when it comes to energy policy, so I'm happy to hear we're going to have more sources of energy to grow our economy and protect our energy security. But it makes me think. President Biden even recently chided petroleum majors for not building more refineries in the last several decades. Why are we not building traditional refineries, but a startup is working to build a 55,000 barrel a day refinery from scratch? Even more puzzling, they're planning to do it in a liberal state like Oregon. You probably already know the answer. Our government is spending our money to produce renewable diesel. And maybe that's okay. But according to the energy consulting firm Stillwater Associates, renewable diesel costs about $6 a gallon to manufacture, and it sells for about $3 a gallon. So currently, a renewable diesel plant is going to lose $3 for every gallon it sells. How do they do it? Well, Stillwater Associates says that federal and state subsidies for renewable diesel can add up to about $5 a gallon. Presto! Throw enough taxpayer money at the chosen renewable of your choice and it becomes profitable for the developer. Imagine if oil companies had $5 per gallon incentive to build new refineries. It'd be like the government was giving away gas for free, right? Interestingly, the CEO of Next has a record of a failed biodiesel facility he tried to develop in Washington state. While nobody's perfect, especially me, I'm certain that when you're investing other people's money, taxpayer money instead of your own, your investment strategy is going to be a little different. And that's a good part of the difference between the traditional oil, gas, and petrochemicals and green energies. My editorial in the upcoming print issue of BIC, due out March 1st, addresses more broadly the inefficiencies of this type of investment. If you'd like to subscribe to BIC Magazine, go to bicmagazine.com and hit the subscribe button in the top upper right hand corner of the page. And if you're not following BIC on LinkedIn and Twitter, please give us a follow to keep up with current industrial news. God's blessings be upon you and our nation.